And next item 3 is a request for recommendation to waive SAFECOM grant guidance regarding purchase of non-P25 equipment. Justin.
Thank you, committee members. I wanted to introduce this presentation. This is a little bit different than what we've normally seen before the SIEC, so I wanted to give you some kind of background information. Homeland Security grant programs have several requirements when you're using grant funds for the purchase of equipment. At the federal level, the vast majority of federal grants now, including Homeland Security grants, require conformance with the SAFECOM grant guidelines. One of the key elements of the SAFECOM grant guidelines is that it requires all radio equipment purchased with grant funds to be P25 compatible. The equipment, obviously, that's under review here today does not conform to those standards for obvious reasons. In addition to that, SAFECOM grant guidance also requires that grant projects be in alignment with the state SCIP. And typically, in Arizona, when Homeland Security grants are reviewed, there's the interoperability working group that looks at both the compatibility with SAFECOM guidance and the alignment with the SCIP and the strategic goals that the state has laid out. On top of that, Arizona Homeland Security grant requirements have 2 additional requirements that they have to meet. Radios purchased with grant funds have to program in the Arizona Interoperable Channel Plan, and they have to meet or conform to the minimum equipment standards that this body of the PSCC has approved. Again, for obvious reasons, this project cannot conform to either of those standards because it's a different set of technology. Right now, Homeland Security and City of Phoenix are in the process of seeking a waiver from SAFECOM, or excuse me, from the Federal Department of Homeland Security to waive the SAFECOM grant requirements to allow this project to be funded. Homeland Security has asked the Statewide Interop Executive Committee and the PSCC to weigh in on this with a recommendation, one way or the other, on whether they should support, or whether you support the waiver requirement from SAFECOM. 2 things that we need to make clear on this. We are not approving or denying the funding on this project. That is outside the scope of what we're able to do. And second is we are not approving or denying the waiver for this project. We are simply, such as when the City of Phoenix came forward with a petition to the FCC, they are simply requesting a resolution of recommendation on behalf of this body. From the SCIP standpoint, while the strategic direction of our SCIP has established 700 megahertz P25 as the core technology, and the regional systems of systems approach is the way of achieving interoperability, we do have a number of initiatives within the SCIP that this particular project would align with, or could align with, and in particular, I'm going off the top of my head, I believe it's Strategic Initiative 8, the Strategic Technology Reserve Initiative, and the development of capabilities for continuity of operations, continuity of government, and backup plans. However, amateur radio is not mentioned within our SCIP, and we really haven't had a lot of discussions at either this level or the PSCC over the last several years about the role amateur radio plays within the emergency response community. So this is certainly a very timely request here, an agenda item, particularly as we look to review and revise our SCIP over the coming year. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Don Payton, I believe. Don, are you going to be talking about it? To kind of put forward the project to you and see if you have any questions.
Thank you.
You can come up so we have it on the microphone.
I'm more the push-to-talk person, so Larry Wilson and Harold are here to answer any technical questions that you have, because I can't. My role is to turn on the radio, go to the appropriate channel, and push-to-talk and do some of that. A number of years ago, we purchased some amateur radio equipment through a Urban Area Security Initiative grant. We purchased 23 handheld FT60 radios, as well as some AZ8800 radios that are mobile. We put one of those in each of our vehicles. We placed one of them in our communications trailer, excuse me, and we have one that's portable that we can take and set up anywhere and operate a base station. We also purchased a portable repeater that we can take, again, we can deploy with us anywhere that we go, so that we have an ability to communicate anywhere that we're deployed to. So the amateur radio process is not new to us and or the urban area, the national grants or the federal grants for the UASI especially. That's typically where we purchase our equipment. Some of these radios were purchased fairly recently, and so we've got the capability. What we don't have is the system that we operate through, which is the repeaters, other than the portable repeater. Most of the amateur radio repeaters are owned privately, and so we have to ask permission to use them. With these repeaters, we can put them up. The City of Phoenix will place them in the appropriate places and then maintain them. So they'll be owned by, basically, and operated through and maintained by the City of Phoenix. The D-Star repeater, which is something we purchased a while back. We just haven't had the funding to put it in or establish it, and we've now have permission to put that up on South Mountain. I'm going to let Harold talk about that.
Good morning, Harold Pearson with Phoenix Fire Department Tech Services. What Don's talking about is the D-Star repeater system, which is a 3-band system. It's a VHF or 2-meter, UHF 440, and then a 1.2 repeater system. We do have space now available on South Mountain, and mainly what restricted it in the past was tower space. In the past few years, they've replaced the tower up there, so there's now space available. So that pretty much covers what the D-Star system, as far as getting it back up and operational. Part of the other issue that in the funding behind this is a few years ago when the statewide med system was pretty much dismantled, Phoenix Fire had a pretty extensive system of UHF radios throughout the valley and receivers that they used for med-channel patching to hospitals. One with the advent of 800 and cell phones and everything, pretty much that's gone away. So we were able to repurpose some of that equipment. UASI, through a grant request from Mike Worrell, was able to get funding to put up some UASI versions of this, take the ones that we had and just repurpose them. We were also able at that point to acquire some of the UHF and repurpose them for CERT and amateur radio. Currently the system is supported by 5 mountaintops. There is South Mountain, North Mountain, Far North Mountain, Sackatone, which is down by Casa Grande, and our last one is Thompson Peak. This grant request is to allow us to move a little bit further to the west and place a site on White Tanks in an existing site. The other issue is, and part of the request is also to replace the repeater that's up on Thompson Peak due to some maintenance issues that it's having. That's pretty much what I have to say about it. We are also working right now with City of Mesa. They've come on board and they're willing to put an additional site, which would give us 7 sites up in one in the Mesa area. But there's no grant request for that. Amateur radio, there are some P25 systems out there, and they're very unique and very restrictive. If you do not have a radio that's capable of P25, you can't access the system. That really goes against my belief and most of the amateur belief that amateur radio should be open. And our system is an open system. It's when emergencies or when events are not going on, it is open to the public. And it provides pretty good coverage to most of Maricopa. Not only do we have the mountaintop sites, but we also have a lot of low-level building sites that we utilize as receivers. Everything is microwaved back into our alarm room, goes through a voter system, and then is rebroadcast out. So it's rather unique and rather robust system for the area. Any questions?
Yeah.
From my past experiences in favor of the amateur radio, when I was in Pinal County, we had a series of major fiber line cuts, which rendered telephones useless. 911 was out, and the only way we actually had of requesting ambulance dispatch was using either satellite phone or the amateur radio getting back up to the valley. In 2011, the statewide exercise was an improved nuclear device, in which there was a large magnetic pulse, which rendered most telephone radio systems not working except for amateur radio, a few sat phones, and a low band 47 megahertz that we have to maintain in the county. June 30th of 2011, Rivernet, East Valley power outage. It was only about 10 hours in the peak of summer. Landlines were starting to drop off, cell phones were dropping off, and pretty soon the public safety backhaul and T1 lines were dropped off, and we've been looking towards the amateur radio. This year's statewide exercise was a long-term power outage. In the valley here, we had 90 emergency operations centers playing, and it got to the point that the only communications for voice and data were the amateur radio system. So I just want to put a big plug in for this. It's relatively very inexpensive, and when it hits the fan, it's up and working. So that's my pitch.
Just a couple of questions I have, so we have more information. You already have purchased some radios. This is for 2 repeaters? Is that what it was for?
Correct.
So to replace the one and add one in White Canes. The previous equipment, what grant was that purchased? Did you need a waiver?
The previous equipment was repurposed medical med channels. It was Motorola Quantars that were being pulled out of service, so rather than surplus on the CERT system was born.
I thought I had heard there were some radios purchased on the front.
You know, I think we did purchase some ham radio equipment for the CERT team years ago under UASI.
Right.
I think at the time, the AEL was not, I don't want to say not being adhered to as closely, but I think as AZDOHS has moved on, you know, as they progress, they're really paying attention to that AEL. Mike Stidham is really looking at that. So I don't want to say they slipped through, but they did. And so they didn't have to kind of go through the process of requesting the waiver.
That's why I was kind of wondering how it's purchased.
We've been doing this for years, but this go around, and rightfully so, we really should follow this procedure to do that. So we've been supporting it for years throughout the Phoenix urban area. We just have never sought the waiver.
And one last thing, in terms of the D-Star repeater, one of the things that, and I failed to mention this earlier, one of the things that we did was purchase a number of the D-Star radios, the mobile radios, and those have been, the reason we purchased those was for the different EOCs around the county, so that they have the capability of talking to each other digitally rather than, which limits access to that frequency, I guess, and then to be able to send data as well. And we have, I think, 4 of those left that we are available to the EOCs in the valley.
But that equipment's installed but not usable without this piece of it.
It's already $5, right? This will make
We're actually talking 2 different systems. The D-Star system was purchased under UASI grant money, and it needs a home, and its home should be South Mountain. We're requesting funding to put the antenna system up now that there's space and availability. That will support the EOCs on the D-Star, and D-Star is digital format. There's 2 actual systems, and then the CERT amateur system, the 440 open system, is what we're requesting the 2 additional repeaters for.
That's what I was getting confused.
Yeah.
I was thinking there was 2 different things. Clarify that. And then like Justin said, we're only looking for a resolution of recommendation that this be allowed. You'll still have to go through all the other pieces of this if you get the waiver to get your arm wrestling through your rack.
Funding's been allocated. The Phoenix or USC has already allocated them the funding. Yeah, this is the 2011 fallout funds, I believe. So the funding has already been authorized by our USC. They just don't have authorization to spend it until they get the.
That's good.
Yeah, so they don't have to go back and fight for the funding. They just need to fight the waiver.
And we have kind of a limited window because the money has to be spent by the end of July.
Who will be using the system? Who's benefiting from the system?
Everybody sitting in this room.
I certainly won't be using the system. So I'm asking who's going to
You may not use it, but it's available to you. It's available if you're from a municipality to your municipality. It's available to all the amateur radio users in your municipality. Also, it's a link to your EOC because most EOCs have amateur radio capability now, and the reason for that is you're going to get a lot of information, intelligence coming out of the community to your EOC that you can use to make decisions.
So I guess the answer I'm looking for is to get confirmed from me. Any amateur radio user will be able to access this system?
Yes, sir.
So it's an open system?
Yes, sir.
It is an open system during periods of non-need, non-necessity. So we just did the Rock and Roll Marathon over the weekend, so that would be a window where it's not really open to the public because there's a ham net going on. It's being utilized. So prior to that, they make an announcement that if there is any emergency traffic, you can come in and what the operational period is. And then once the event is over, then they make an announcement that the system is released back to general public.
We support our police department's missing persons detail by conducting missing person searches for them, and that's the system that we use to communicate from our folks in the field back to our command post.
But that's just part of the request. The other digital part is not.
Yes. Well,
It's the link between EOCs.
as long as they have that capability, then yes. Otherwise, no. It's basically a closed system.
Okay. Any other questions?
You said there's a backhaul system that's maintained by the city of Phoenix?
Yeah. All of our system is on microwave. They're in public safety grade buildings with emergency battery and also generator. These radios are treated as public safety radios. So much like our VHF system and the 800 trunk system that we use, these fall right into line with it as far as maintenance goes.
But as I understand, some of the beauty of the ham system is its robustness without that backhaul. So when that backhaul, I shouldn't say when, if it should fail, do the radios still operate?
No,
They don't.
not in that mode. The way the system,
Standalone mode they would, but not linked together.
Right.
I think that's what you're talking about. The linking aspect would go down, but they would still be functional on a mountaintop.
they are not functional on the mountaintop because they require the voting system in order to key the system. The way the system was designed, each of the mountaintops, with the exception of far north, there is a secondary repeater that is utilized in the ham community. Let's say Queen Creek has something going on and they don't need the full valley-wide coverage. There's a local repeater that they can use. So there's actually two choices for them. They can use the local or they can get on the wide area, which is the CERT system. CERT system is open to any team that wishes to use it. And we've worked with each of the teams in the valley. They have our comm plans. It's a rather standardized comm plan of not only the CERT repeaters, but also of amateur repeaters that have been open to the CERT system. And that talked about White Tank, Shaw Butte, Far East Valley, and also, for instance, Saskatoon for many, many years, there was only one UHF ham repeater down there. It was one that I installed and sponsored. Now, luckily, there's two. So there's one they can use on a local basis, and there's one that they can get in on the CERT and go to wide area.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the public? We have that option to ask? No? Any comments? Would you like to make a motion for this resolution?
I'll make a motion that we support.
So Pete, you're moving that we approve a resolution for recommendation to waive the SAFECOM grant guidance regarding purchase of non-25 equipment?
On this particular case by case.
Okay.
Because we're not actually approving it, we're just letting her in
Well,
favor,
you're approving a resolution for recommendation. Pass.
which that 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just want to clarify that this motion is specific to this request only.
Okay. That's my understanding. Is that the understanding of the mover and the seconder?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, this would be specific to this request. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Thanks for the presentation.